Fai sempre quello che hai paura di fare.
Speaking Italian can be really scary. I remember I would have the phrase ready in my head and then I'd be repeating it over and over again, feeling really anxious. And then when I got to the point where I could finally use it, I'd either forget or say it right, but then they'd reply in English anyway.
It's okay. Thank you.
Grazie.
That's okay? Thank you so much.
If you feel like speaking Italian should be easier, then it's really easy to panic in these kind of situations and then give up too soon. Whereas if you accept that, yes, this is completely normal, these things will happen, and you keep going anyway, that's when you'll really start to make some progress in Italian. Along the way, when I was having all of these difficulties, I developed some strategies that helped me overcome them, and I'll share them with you in today's video. Whew. The first thing is that people will reply to you in English. Don't take it personally, this happens to everyone. So you might say something perfectly like, "Cosa mi consiglia?" What do you recommend? And then the waiter might reply, "Well, madam, we have the dish of the day, blah, blah, blah." This still happens to me sometimes, especially in really touristy areas. I think they just look at me, assume that I'm not Italian, and then they might reply on autopilot, or they might think that they're being friendly and helping me out, or maybe they want to practice their English. There are a couple of phrases that you can use to help get past this. The first one is, possiamo parlare in italiano, vorrei imparare. So again, that's possiamo parlare in italiano. Can we speak in Italian? Possiamo parlare in italiano. Vorrei imparare. I'd like to learn. Vorrei imparare. So this takes the pressure off and it helps the person realize that you want to practice your Italian. Vorrei imparare. I'd like to learn. Vorrei imparare. And if you really, really want to to let them know, look, I'm just learning, this might go horribly wrong, to lower expectations, you can say, posso provare in italiano? Can I try in Italian? Posso provare in italiano? This is obviously important to try with the right people in the right moment. You don't want to try in a really busy restaurant when the waiter's rushed off his feet. But maybe somewhere in a quiet shop or something like that. A lot of Italians are really pleased and surprised that you're learning their language and they're happy to help. One of our students told us about how she was on a cruise one time and she mentioned to the waiter that she was learning Italian. And then the waiter from then on always made the effort to speak to her in Italian. So these phrases really work. The next thing is that you'll need to practice a lot because speaking practice is really important for learning a foreign language and people often underestimate how much you need. So you can of course practice speaking with an Italian tutor or with an Italian teacher, or also when you're in Italy trying to have a go at speaking in Italian. But those situations can sometimes feel quite high pressure. So one thing that I really liked to do is to practice speaking Italian on my own, because a lot of the time I kind of knew the words, I kind of knew the grammar, but I hadn't had that practice of taking the time to put them together in my head. And I didn't want to make Italians wait for 5 minutes while I was kind of thinking about what form the verb was in. So that was something that I could do on my own really slowly. And it really, really helped me start to be able to say sentences a bit more fluently. Another thing that I did was I had a German friend who was also learning Italian, and she was in the exact same position as me. So we were very patient and we'd wait for each other to put sentences together. And even though there was no Italian there, we became a lot more fluent just speaking together and having that practice of making sentences. Another way to practice speaking, a bit counterintuitively, is by listening a lot. Listening all the time can really, really help your speaking because your brain gets used to hearing those phrases and grammatical forms and words over and over again so that they become habit without you having to worry too much about the logic. The more you listen, the more you'll find that these things pop into your head when you need them when you're speaking. And one thing that can really help with this is if you've listened to something, say a conversation in Italian, listen to it a lot, and then you can try speaking about the same thing. So say, for example, you're listening to a conversation about what Italians do at the weekend or what their favorite TV series is, then you can try to talk about what you do at the weekend or what your favorite TV series is. That helps you to practice using the things that you're hearing, and then you'll be able to use them more easily in conversation when you chat to Italians. And this is exactly what we do in our online Italian school. So if you're interested about learning more about that, you can click the link in the description. Another thing that's really important is to realize that you will make a lot of mistakes when you're speaking in Italian, and this is completely normal. It's actually really necessary because it's those mistakes that will help you learn. So it's all a case of making mistakes and trusting the process. You'll make a mistake, you'll make the same mistake, you'll make the same mistake, and then you'll say it correctly. It's just a normal part of learning Italian. And there's two different types of situations, I think, where it makes sense to focus on your mistakes or where it doesn't. I think it doesn't make sense to focus that much on your mistakes when you're trying to communicate. So, for example, a lot of the time, Italians do not care about your mistakes. They won't even notice them, but they want the practical side of the conversation. So, for example, if you're ordering something in a bar, the barista wants to know what you want to order. And if you're talking to somebody in Italian having small talk, they're trying to learn about you. So they don't want you to be there obsessed with your mistakes. They just want you to try and get your message across. Matteo actually gets really annoyed if we're trying to have a conversation in Italian and I'm stopping every 2 minutes to change it into an Italian lesson.
It's true. It's totally true. She's very annoying. Not joking. But a bit she is, because she's always asking, am I saying this in the correct way? How do I say this? Or how do I say that? It's fine. I want to know what you want to say. And don't worry if it's not perfect Italian.
Yeah. So if I'm like there saying, oh, did I say this verb right? Or how do you say that word? At a certain point, Matteo actually just goes, ah. So you have our full permission in these situations to forget about trying to say things perfectly and just really focus on getting your message across. There's another type of situation where you've got much more space to focus on perfecting things and really focus on learning and improving. And that can be if you have an Italian lesson, for example, with a tutor, or also you might have Italian friends, if you're lucky enough to know them, that are really kind of nerdy about the grammar and they actually enjoy helping you with those things. So in that case, you can ask them, puoi correggermi, per favore? Puoi correggermi, per favore? And that's really important to ask them because otherwise they might actually want to and be happy to help, but they might be afraid that they seem rude or that they're offending you if they're correcting you. So it's really important to let Italians know that you actually do want them to correct you.
Ciao Josh, come stai?
Bene. E tu?
Bene, grazie. Cosa fai oggi? Cosa hai fatto ieri? Che programmi hai per il fine settimana?
The last thing that's really important to know is that when you're speaking Italian, you will get stuck all the time where you don't know how to say what you want to say. And this is another thing that's completely normal. So don't worry about it when it happens. Just the awkward silences, it's all a normal part of learning. But one thing that can really help you get over them is to have a set of phrases that deal with the specific thing that's stopping you from communicating so that you can get past it. So for example, if you don't know a word, you can say, come si dice? Come si dice? Let's imagine, for example, you're at a market and you see some oranges and you don't know how to say that. You could point and you could say, come si dice? Another really useful phrase is you can just point at things and say, cos'è questo? Cos'è questo? I really love doing that because it's a good way to learn new Italian vocabulary and it's also a good way to connect with Italians. But there might be the other way around. Let's say, for example, an Italian is speaking to you and you hear a word, but you don't know what it means. So you can ask, cosa significa? Cosa significa? What does this mean? For example, cosa significa cane? What does dog mean? Come on.
Vuoi mangiare, no?
And then another couple of phrases that are really, really useful for communicating with Italians is you can ask them to repeat. So, può ripetere, per favore? Può ripetere, per favore? And that's the formal version for if it's somebody that you don't know or somebody who's a little bit older. For younger people or for people that you know well, you can use the informal version with puoi. So, puoi ripetere, per favore? Puoi ripetere, per favore? And then possibly the most important phrase of all to get Italians to slow down a little bit, because they do speak quickly, is più piano, per favore. Più piano, per favore. And if you'd like more advice on what to do about Italian speaking quickly, particularly if you have a slightly higher level, you can find a video about this somewhere. I don't know where, but we'll try and put it somewhere on the screen. So remember that all of these problems are completely normal. So it's normal to feel embarrassed. It's normal to feel scared of making mistakes. It's normal to have long silences. It's just a part of learning. But if you let these things stop you from actually trying to practice speaking Italian, you're cutting yourself off really from lots of valuable opportunities to practice speaking Italian and also to connect with Italians. So Italians don't want you to be perfect. You can often have a laugh with them even if you only just know a few words. So I'd really encourage you to go out and have a go with this with whatever Italian you have. E adesso tocca a te. So now it's your turn. Do you have any advice for starting and continuing to practice speaking Italian? Leave us a comment. Ciao!